Money. The most important question comes, what exactly money is? Why it is so important? Why the demand for money is always there? So in this chapter we are going to analyze what exactly money is, what exactly money does, and how the demand is created, and what are different theories or the plans which are given by different economists making the analysis of demand for money. So let's see what money is and what money does, because there is a definition of money. Money is what money does. So let's see what exactly money is. This is chapter number 3, Money Market, Unit 1, the concept of money demand, important theories. So let's start with the concept money. It is the common base for measurement. Of course, it's a common base. You can measure everything in terms of money. It is the most liquid asset, easily convertible. You can immediately give money and get, of course, if the currency is allowed in our country. It is accepted as a common exchange base. When I am making even a barter exchange, the value of these two goods are expressed in terms of money. For example, if I am giving 2 chairs and getting 1 table, then I will analyze it. What is the price of chairs given and what is the value of table taken? Both expressed in the same currency, and that is money. Of course, the money can be rupees, dollar, euro, anything else is money. It has generalized purchasing power. If you give money, you are going to get something in return. That's a purchasing power. It represents a certain value. When you are having a currency note of 500 rupees, of course, that is having the value of rupees 500, and you can get something in return which is worth 500. So it's a certain value giving money. Now, what are the functions of money? What money does exactly? The medium of exchange, of course. When I am giving something which is called as money, a currency, I am getting goods or services from someone. It's a medium of exchange. Common measure of value. Everything can be expressed in terms of money, as we discussed. Unit of deferred payment. We have seen the concepts like credit sales, bill of exchange, loans taken. This is called as deferred payment. The payment will be made in future, and that amount is again expressed in terms of money. You can remember the things, or you can remind the things. That is the wording in bill of exchange. Pay to me or my order sum of rupees something for the goods purchased. That is a format of bill of exchange. So that is unit of deferred payment, future payment. The store of value. You can express your store value in terms of money. For example, I have purchased debentures of rupees 1 lakh, redeemable after 5 years. That is, I will get the amount after 5 years, and that will be if it is at par 1 lakh. So the store value is also there in money. Perfect reversibility. If I give 1 lakh rupees loan to someone, I will get back 1 lakh rupees from him. If I give some asset to anyone and I am getting it back, its value comes down. We call it as a depreciation. But in case of money, there is no such factor. At the nominal value, if I give 1 lakh, I will get 1 lakh from him. So that is called as perfect reversibility. Of course, within that time span, the purchasing power may come down, but the currency nominal value will be same. Now, so these were all the functions of money, what money does. Now let's see the characteristics of an ideal money. Which characteristics must be possessed? Acceptability. It must be acceptable. What happened after demonetization? Suddenly the value of rupees 500 or 1000 old currency notes has vanished. Even though you are having 500 rupees currency in your hand, it is not acceptable by anyone. No one is going to give you anything against that currency. So that is, it should be acceptable by everyone. Durability. It must be durable. It must possess the value which is long term. If I am taking 1 lakh rupees from you in the currency of 1000, and if it is said that that currency is to be used or it is allowed for next 6 months only, I am not going to accept that currency. So durability, it should have a longer life. Recognizable, it should be recognized. As you know, the currency, even if you see from 100 meters, you can immediately recognize what is the value of that currency. But that is not only recognizable, it should be accepted by the other person also. No duplication at all. It should not be duplicated. Once the currency is printed by our government, it should not be duplicated. That is a basic feature. Of course, many times we see the fake currencies, but of course fake currency is not having that much purchasing value. It is worth, it's a useless thing. It is not having any worth. But if you can recognize that it's a fake currency, so no duplication of currency. Scarcity. If, let's imagine that you are having 100 rupees or 500 rupees currency note all over the world. Everywhere you can see that currency notes. Then scarcity is lost. There will not be any value of that currency. आपको मालूम है कि डीमोनेटाइजेशन के बाद बहुत सारी 500 की और 1000 रुपीस की करेंसी फेंक दी गई थी. There was no one to pick it up. गवर्नमेंट को ये उठा के लेके जाना पड़ा और it's a scrap now. So it should be scarce. So if it is available everywhere in your cupboard, in your drawers, it will not be scarce. It will not have any value. So it should be scarce. Portable, transferable. Now in the era of e-commerce, it's a easily transferable thing. Paytm karo. So it's a easily transferable thing. But when we are talking about the physical currency, it should be portable. You know what? There are so many suggestions given that we should have a very small denomination currencies in our country, with a view that in case of black money, it will be difficult to carry that money. So portability will be lost. So ideally, for a good market condition, money should be portable, transferable. Uniformity. Of course, it must be same. The 10 rupee coin or 5 rupee coin must be same everywhere. Otherwise, there will be confusions. Divisibility. पैसा छुट्टा करके चाहिए. Is it possible? Of course, it is possible. If you have got a currency or note of 1000 or 2000, you can get it converted into the currency notes of 100, 500 without loss of a single rupee. So it should be divisible in small denominations also. So these are all the features an ideal currency or money should possess. But still the question remains, why do we need money? क्यों चाहिए हमें पैसा? Now let's analyze the reasons why money is needed and why money is demanded by general public as well as everyone in our society. The demand for money. If the people wish to hold money, we can say that it's a demand for money. I wish to have currency. I wish to have liquid currency with me. That is what is demand for money. If I convert my money into FDs, then it's not called as demand for money. We are talking about liquid or near money. That is the cash and the very small duration investments. The demand for money is because the money works as a medium of exchange, as we already discussed. That is what I want. That is why I want money. I am going to get something in return. If I go to Dubai, I am not able to use my own home currency, that is rupee, but I can get it converted into their home currency and I can purchase anything. It's a medium of exchange. That's why the demand for money is there. So there are four different theories, main four different theories which are formed to explain why the demand for money is created. Classical approach, neoclassical approach, Keynesian approach and post-Keynesian approach. Let's analyze four theories in detail. First, the classical approach. Classical approach gives importance to the quantity of money in the market. Thus, it is also called as quantity theory of money. It was introduced by Mr. Fisher in his book Purchasing Power of Money, published in 1911. It depicts the relationship between quantity of money and price level. What he is trying to say is the quantity of money depends on the price level, and that is the purchasing power, and vice versa. Let's see what is that. As per this theory, the quantity of money in the society has a direct impact on price level. As the quantity of money changes, the general price level also changes in the market. We know it very well. If we get more amount in our hand, which is called as expenditure based amount, or which is available free for expenditure amount, if you have got that amount, then obviously the demand will increase, and as the demand is going up, supply keeping constant, the prices will go up. And if we don't have money in our hand, then demand will come down. As the demand comes down, keeping supply constant, prices will come down. That is why the theory states that with the quantity of demand, quantity of money, the price level changes, and then again the demand for money changes. As per this theory, MV plus M dash P dash is equal to PT. What is M? It is quantity of money in the market. We call it as a liquid cash. V is a number of times a unit of money used in transaction. If I have got 1000 rupees currency note, I will purchase something. Then that seller will use it for purchase of some raw material. Then the raw material supplier will further use it for some purchases. So how many times the currency is used? M dash is quantity of credit money in the market. Now we cannot say that only the physical cash, liquid cash is money. The credit money, or we can say virtual money, is also important. So what is its quantity and how many times that transactions are taking place? So in this way, these four factors decides the overall demand for money. In simple words, the quantity of money flowing in the market depends on the demand. As the number of transactions grows, the demand for the money increases and ultimately its quantity also. If in our market there were only basic needs available, so even though we were having some cash in our pocket, there was nothing to spend. Suddenly some new luxurious items are introduced in our market, so we are motivated to make more expenditure, and then we will give the more demand or create more demand for money. Prices will automatically come up and the quantity demanded will increase. Supply of money is to be increased. So ultimately, when the transaction increases, demand for money also goes up. That was the first classical approach, quantity approach. Going for the second one, demand for money theory number 2, neoclassical approach. It is introduced by economists of Cambridge University, that is Marshall, Pigou, Robertson and Keynes, thus known as the Cambridge approach. Second, neoclassical approach is also known as Cambridge approach. Let's see what is given in this approach. It states that the demand for money depends on two factors only. First, for transactions, and second, hedge against uncertainty. Transaction, we know we need the cash for making the payments and getting goods and services. What is this hedge against uncertainty? Hedge means reduction of the risk, taking some steps to avoid the future risk. So let's see what is that. The overall demand depends on thinking and choices of every citizen towards two factors. And of course, such choice depends on his or her income also. What are these two choices? First, expenditure. Second, security for future. As per the theory, more is the income, more will be the preference for spending and also securing the future. If I have got more income, first thing I will do is I will expend more. Maybe proportionately it is lower as compared to earlier salary. For example, my salary was 10,000 per month and I was making the expenditure of 6,000 per month, which is 60%, 40% was saving. Now my salary has gone up to 30,000. Now I am spending 15,000 for my expenditure. So amount has increased from 6,000 to 15,000, but it is hardly 50% of my income. The remaining 50% is going in banks or maybe for some securities for my future. So maybe I will invest in mutual funds or I will go for insurance and something. So these two factors increases with more income. In short, demand for money directly depends on our income. More is the income, more will be the demand. So MD is equal to K into PY. MD is demand for money. K is a proportion of national income people wants to hold as cash balance. Whatever national income is there, how much percentage of income people generally holds available for expenditure in cash. Let's say generally average 40% of the cash is utilized for expenditure. That is what is K. Proportion of overall national income kept available for expenditure. P, average price level of goods. What is the price level of goods, overall goods which are consumed by us, and Y is our national income. So how much is our national income? How much proportion of that national income is used for expenditure, and what is the price of commodity? That will decide what will be the demand for money. For example, if the national income increases and proportion is same, price is also same, still the demand for money will go up because the income is more. If national income is constant but overall proportion for consumption goes up, demand for money will go up. If national income is constant, proportion is also constant, but the prices of goods goes up, we have to spend more, again demand for money will go up. So in this way, the neoclassical approach states that we need the cash for transactions as well as future certainty steps also. So K is also known as Cambridge K. As we have seen, what is K? It's a proportion of national income used for expenditure. Thus, the theory has changed the focus from consumption. It has given importance to the future security also. Earlier, the focus was, that is in classical approach, the focus was only for transaction. The money was needed for transaction purpose only. But this theory has given stress on the future uncertainties also. Some cash is invested to cover the risk of future uncertainties also. Now moving towards the third Keynesian approach, what Keynes has stated, also known as liquidity preference theory. What is liquidity preference? I give preference for the liquidity of cash. I don't want FDs, I don't want anything else. What I want is, I want liquid cash, I wish to expend more. आज का दिन है भाई, खर्च कर लो, कल का किसने देखा है? Liquidity preference theory. It is introduced by Keynes in the book The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in 1936. तो पूरा पैसा खर्च कर दो, ये अप्रोच 1936 से आज भी वैसे ही चल रहा है. People hold money for three motives: transaction motive, precautionary motive and speculative motive. Transaction motive, as we know, to expend the money for day-to-day transactions to get goods and services. Precautionary motive, like taking the insurance and paying the premiums. Speculative, as I have got some extra amount, let's invest somewhere, then maybe hedging or arbitrage, such kind of transactions. Speculative, invest somewhere which is little bit risky but giving high returns to us. Of course, it should be legal way to invest. So first is transaction motive. Transaction motive, everyone needs cash for entering in a transaction. The transaction can be personal or related to the business. So we are not talking about an individual only, it is business also which needs the cash. The need for money arises due to the gap between payments and receipts. Generally, in financial management, we have seen this concept: average collection period from debtors and average payment period to creditors. Why do we need cash? Let's assume average collection period from debtors is 5 months. That means you will get the cash after 5 months against the credit sales. But average payment period is only 3 months. पैसा आएगा 5 महीने बाद, but we have to pay it within 2 months. So there is a gap of 3 months which is to be covered by liquid cash. If it would have been 5 months equally, so यहाँ से पैसा आया और यहाँ पे pay कर दिया, I don't need liquid cash. Or in the opposite situation, if debtors collection is 2 months and creditors payment is 3 months, I can invest for 3 months in FD. But when there is a negative gap, I need cash. So that is one reason. The transaction motive is defined as LR is equal to KY. LR, transaction demand for money. I need the money for transaction. Y is earning, that is yield, and K is a percentage of earning kept for consumption. So generally, whatever consumption money required as a percentage of my income. Let's say out of my income, 30% is required for my consumption. Not only business, individual also. इतना पैसा तो भाई हर महीना खर्च करना है. Ultimately, the transaction demand depends on the national income. Of course, individual income as aggregated is a national income. If the national income goes up, obviously our consumption will go up. So that was the first motive, transaction motive. So we need cash for transaction motive first as per Keynes theory. Now second reason is precautionary motive. What is that? People need money for contingency reserves also. Everyone need to keep some amount aside for future uncertainties. We call it as saving. Fortunately, in India, we are having positive savings, so that is why we need cash for this. In case of credit cards, for example, we expend first and pay afterwards, so it's a negative saving. So precautionary motive means we save some amount, either we keep it aside or we use it for insurance premium, etc. The need for this type of money depends on income, nature of person, future expectations, etc. Nature of person also matters. If he is ready to take the risk, maybe he will not pay insurance premium. He will say, whenever the accident will take place, then I will pay the full amount. So it depends on income, nature of person. What is your future expectation? If you think that you are a fit person, maybe you will not go for mediclaim amount. So it depends. So that was the second motive. We need the cash for precautionary motives. People need money for third, that is speculative motive. As per Keynes, this demand is for holding the cash to take advantage of future opportunities. For example, I know it very well that, let's say nowadays there is a boom in the property market. So I always say, काश यार थोड़ा पैसा एक्स्ट्रा होता ना तो मैं एक घर खरीद लेता. I don't want to go there and live just as an investment. 3 साल बाद बेच देता. But the problem is that आज मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है. So that is called as speculative motive. I need cash to invest it for future benefit because I am expecting some future opportunities. That is called as speculation. He assumes that people either hold pure cash or invest in government bonds. For Keynes, there were only 2 types of investment, either hold it in cash or keep it in government bonds. For this, there are 2 types of gains. Interest gain. Of course, government bonds means now you can say in today's market, the open market operations, that is like shares, securities, bonds or even properties. At that time, he assumed only government bonds. So what you will get on it, either first is a revenue gain, we call it as interest or dividend, and second capital appreciation, that is increase in the value of your investment. So for these 2 purposes, you invest the cash for future investment, or that is investment today giving future. Here they compare the normal or critical rate of investment, that is NRR, normal rate of return, with actual rate of return, ARR. How much I am expecting from government or let's say open market nowadays from investment, and how much I am getting from the market or government. If actual rate of return is more than normal rate of return, then I am motivated to invest more in the market. Then people invest more in bonds and needs more money for that investment. I want hard cash because I wish to invest in bonds at that time nowadays in any type of securities or properties. If actual rate of return is lesser than normal rate of return, then I don't need cash. I don't want to invest in the bonds, so I don't need cash for that purpose. So the demand for cash will come down. I repeat, we are talking about why the demand for money is created. So in this way, the demand for money will go down. So, but still hold the cash with the expectation to decrease the value of bonds and they will invest again. Sometimes it also happens that even though actual rate of return is lesser, still I will need some cash. साइड में रख देता है, शायद मार्केट प्राइस कम हो जाए, I will invest it and I will get more amount. So for that purpose, maybe if I expect like this, I will need more cash. So how the speculative motive works? This is speculative demand for money, interest rate. So if the interest rates are high, as we call it as actual rate of return, gradually the demand for money will go up. So as per Keynes, the demand for liquid cash for speculative purpose is inversely related to the interest rates in the market. Why inversely related? Ideally, it should be directly related. What he states that if the interest rate on bonds goes up, I will need more cash. So it is not inversely related in that sense. But the second thing is that when I am borrowing the amount, I have to pay the interest on it. So after a certain level, it goes in the reverse way also. So up to certain level, it is in direct relation. Afterwards, it will go in inverse if I have to pay higher rate of interest on the loans. As the interest on government bonds will increase, loan interest rate will also go up. So that is why after certain level, the liquidity trap region will take place. That means the liquidity is now trapped. I cannot have liquid cash now because on my right hand the interest rate of loans are increasing and on the left hand side I am getting more and more interest. And you must know this, the fact is that interest on bonds or interest on investments are always lower than the interest on your loan. So obviously after a certain level, we will not tend to invest more amount. So here there will be a trap, after which there will not be any increase in investment in bonds. To sum up, with more income, the cash demand for speculative motive increases. First motive, transaction motive. पैसा ज़्यादा आ गया, expenditure ज़्यादा होगा. With higher rate of interest, cash goes more in bonds, so the demand for liquid cash reduces. That is also true with more and more interest. If the amount is blocked in bonds, then transactions will come down. So that could be the second reason. With reduction in interest rates, the demand for liquid cash or speculative purposes increases. So if the bond are not giving me the interest, then I will sell out the bonds. Better to go for making the expenditure. So if the rates are coming down, I am not getting good returns, I will stop going for it and then I will hold the liquid cash. So now moving towards the fourth. So we have seen the Keynes theory, that was the third, classical, neoclassical Keynes. Now we are moving towards the demand for money as per post-Keynesian approach. So there are three different theories coming under post-Keynesian approach. That is the era after the Keynes theory was introduced. The inventory approach, Friedman's approach and behavioral approach. Let's see what is that in detail. First, the inventory approach. Inventory means stock, as we know. The theory was introduced by Baumol and Toffins. People need money either to keep in liquid cash or for investment in bonds. So as per them, there are only two options again. Either they will hold it in the form of cash or they will hold it in the form of bonds. Both are called as stock. Liquid cash or FD gives positive returns, of course. While converting in bonds needs transaction costs like brokerage. So when I am converting my amount into bonds, now bonds means anything else you can assume, shares, debentures, anything, I have to give the brokerage. So it includes the transaction cost. It means just like our repay or recharge option, when 100 rupees recharge hota hai, at that time you get only 95 rupees balance. Of course, nowadays due to competition it is 100%, but the basic theme is that when you pay for 100, you get 95 rupees recharge. On the same line, if I have 100 rupees liquid cash, it is liquid cash of 100. But if when I am converting it into bonds, let's say 2% amount will be reduced and only 98 will be invested. And when I am selling it again I will have to pay the brokerage and I will get some lesser amount. So while converting the bonds, we need transaction cost like brokerage. If the transaction cost is high, people will motivate to hold more cash. So demand for cash will increase. I repeat, demand for cash means demand for liquid cash. So if the transaction cost is high, I will not prefer to convert it into bonds. Let the cash be as it is. So the demand for liquid cash will go up. If the interest rate of bond is more than transaction cost, now if 2% I am paying as transaction cost, but there is a high rate of interest available in the market, then why not to go into bond? Then the liquid cash will be blocked in the bonds, so the demand for holding the liquid cash will be lesser. So the interest rate is more than transaction cost, then demand for liquid cash will reduce because the demand for bonds will increase. The amount will be blocked. If the transaction cost is high, people will motivate to hold more cash, as we have seen. To sum up, people need cash either for holding or for investment in bond. I repeat, it is an assumption that either you will hold it in cash or near cash, very small time investment, or in bonds. So it depends on transaction cost and the interest rates. The demand for liquid cash is directly related to the transaction cost and of course interest rates also. Second, Friedman's approach. Milton Friedman extended the Keynes speculative demand theory. As we have seen, as per Keynes, there were three types of demand. One of them was speculative. As per this approach, the future value, that is net present value of money, is the base for demand of money. What I am going to do with that cash? Maybe I will invest it somewhere, or maybe I will use it for my business. What exactly cash flow is going to come, and when it is discounted, that is the purchasing power of money is calculated, it is NPV, as we have seen in FM also. So when I am talking about using the cash, and if the NPV is high, I will invest more in that option. So the NPV becomes the base for the investment or liquid cash. He divides the assets in 5 times: money, bonds, equity, physical asset and human capital. Human capital means human resource used for the business. The demand for money is more when the return of bonds etc. is reduced. When the return on bonds, that is the rate of return ROI, is lesser on bonds, I will need more cash. I will prefer more cash in the liquid form. So when the interest rate goes down, liquid cash will be more. The inflation reduces the future value of returns, thus the demand for liquid cash increases. What happens if there is an inflationary situation? So if I invest it somewhere, even in my business, whatever returns I will get in future, its purchasing power will come down. Then why to wait for future? Abhi paisa uda deta hai, I want liquid cash, because anyways by holding that cash, I am not going to get a positive NPV. So आज पैसा उड़ा दो, demand for liquid cash will go up. To conclude, as per Friedman's approach, the demand for money is mainly for the future value, that is NPV of its gain. So the baseline is NPV, future gain, and its purchasing power. If it is good, then amount will be invested, liquid cash will be reduced. If it is not that good, better to hold liquid cash. So demand for money depends on NPV. Third post-Keynesian approach is behavioral theory, how the investor or a person behaves. It is introduced by Tobin in his article Liquidity Preference as Behavior Towards Risk in 1958. As per the theory, every individual makes the comparison of two factors. The liquid cash is preferred if the interest rate of bonds is lower. Again the same thing, if I am not getting good returns, why to invest in bonds? Keep the liquid cash. Also the bonds etc. are open to price variation, while liquid cash is not. Cash is cash, 100% pure. Whatever amount you hold is the actual value of cash. But in case of bonds, there is again the risk of variations in prices. The liquidity preference is given by risk-averse investors. So if I am risk-averse, that means I don't want to take the risk, better to hold the cash. That is the reason in ancient time or in a primitive area or even few years back, there was a tendency to hold the cash. Zameen ke niche paisa gada hua aaj bhi mil jata hai kahin na kahin. So that is what is called as liquidity preference. So why to go in bonds? Wahan se kuch nahi milne wala, hold it in cash. But if the interest rate on bond increases or the risk reduces, then the bonds are preferred as compared to liquid cash. So either the interest rate is very high, or maybe interest is not increasing but the risk is also not there or little bit reduced. In that case, the bond is preferred, cash nahi rakhenge fir bhi chalega. So liquidity preference will come down. Thus the ultimate demand for money depends on the behavior and preference of individuals. If I am a risk taker investor, then I will just ignore the risk. I will directly invest in the market. I don't want liquid cash. I will invest into bonds and I will try to get more returns. So it depends on the behavior of person and how he is going to respond for the coming risk. To conclude, the demand for money is the ultimate truth, and the this unit has explained us why the demand is created so that we can have a strategies for its supply. So we have seen variety of theories, and the baseline was why the demand is created. So we started with money, its features, then what are the expected features of money, and ultimately we have seen different theories which tries to explain why money or the demand for money is created. Now, as we have understood the demand for money, now it's a time to go for the supply of money. How the supply of money is important, how it is controlled, and how exactly the steps are taken to have a proper supply. Of course, that will be in the next unit.